Okay, so let us consider the market for meat processing. So consider a meat processor, and the input to a meat processor is cattle and the output is beef. So the meat processor is both on the demand side for cattle as well as the supplier for beef. Now in the graph up here I have represented the beef and cattle market in the same graph. Note that there has to be an equivalence between the number of cattle and the number of beef that is produced. Okay, there cannot be a mismatch. Now let us just consider the market for beef. Then you have the beef demand and you have the beef supply. Again, the beef supply is coming from the meat processor. There will be a market equilibrium where there is an equilibrium price for beef and an equilibrium quantity for beef. At the same time, you also have the cattle demand. Again, that cattle demand is coming from the meat processor, very much like the beef supply is also coming from the meat processor. And there is a cattle supply by farmers. And again, there's a market equilibrium where you have an equilibrium price for cattle and an equilibrium quantity for cattle. And again, cattle and beef, since it is the same, has to be the same quantity, they're meeting at the same place. Now let us consider what happens if there is the COVID-19 outbreak, for example, in a meat processing plant. In that case, the beef supply is going to switch, it's going to move to the left. For the same price of beef, less beef is supplied. So this is the beef supply. With COVID. Now, since less beef is supplied, the meat processor is also going to decrease the demand for cattle. Okay, you need less cows. This will shift the cattle demand to the left as well. So this one here is now the cattle demand. With COVID. Now what you can see is now you have the new intersection here between the beef supply and the beef demand. And you have the new intersection between the cattle demand and the cattle supply. So the new equilibrium here with COVID, what you can see is that we have less of beef and less of cattle. We have a higher price for beef and we have a lower price for cattle. And hence the marketing margin increased from this distance to this distance. Okay? And hence you can see that economics does indeed explain why there is a widening gap between the price for cattle and the price for beef, given the shock imposed by COVID-19.